The journey to the Kashar expanse took 18 days. Daewon and Jiwon worked together, using her research to avoid Skrell patrol routes and known mercenary territories. Narim traveled at reduced speed to avoid detection, its power signature masked by modifications Daewon had installed. They encountered several ships but managed to avoid confrontation through careful navigation. Jiwon spent much of the journey studying the ship's systems and talking to Narim. She helped Daewon understand Valthek culture better, explaining their values of endurance, compassion, and duty. The Valthek had believed that strength came not from domination, but from protecting those weaker than themselves. That belief had led them to war with the Skrell, and ultimately to their destruction. They were too noble for their own good, Jiwon said one evening as they ate together in the ship's restored dining hall. They could have fled, saved themselves, but they stayed and fought to protect other species. That's why the survivors feel such guilt. They lived while others died. Daewon understood. Narim carried similar guilt about its crew. Survivors' guilt was not limited to organic beings. On the 19th day, they entered the Kashar expanse. The region was chaotic, filled with asteroid fields, radiation storms, and unstable stellar phenomena. Normal sensors were useless here, but Narim had been designed for this environment. The ship's advanced systems could navigate where others could not. They followed Taemon's coordinates deeper into the expanse. Hours passed as they moved through increasingly dangerous space. Asteroids the size of cities drifted past. Radiation levels fluctuated wildly. Daewon kept his hands steady on the controls, trusting Narim to guide them. Finally, the ship's sensors detected something. A massive artificial structure hidden inside a hollowed asteroid. As they approached, the structure became clear. It was a station, kilometers wide, built into the asteroid's interior. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Ships moved in and out of docking bays. This was the refuge Taemon had mentioned. But before they could get closer, 6 Valthek ships surrounded them, weapons charged. A voice came over communications, speaking in the Valthek language. Jiwon translated. Unidentified vessel, you have entered protected space. State your identity and purpose or be destroyed. Daewon activated the communication system. This is Han Daewon, keeper of the Eternal Horizon. We carry a message from Commander Yoon Taemon. We seek the refuge. Silence. Long, tense silence. Then a different voice spoke, older and filled with emotion. The Eternal Horizon was destroyed in the final battle. Taemon died with his ship. Who are you, really? Daewon looked at Narim's core. The ship understood what was needed. It transmitted its identification codes, its memory archives, and visual records of its crew, proof that it was truly the warship that had been lost over a century ago. The Valthek ships held their positions. Minutes passed. Then the older voice spoke again, breaking with emotion. Ancestors preserve us. It's real. The Eternal Horizon lives. Permission granted to dock. Welcome home. The escort ships guided them to the station. As they moved closer, Daewon saw faces pressed against windows, watching their approach. News was spreading fast. The dead had returned. They docked at a large bay where hundreds of Valthek waited. These were not the same Valthek from Taemon's time. These were their children and grandchildren, born in hiding, who had only heard stories of the war. When Daewon and Jiwon emerged from the ship, the crowd fell silent. An elderly Valthek stepped forward, leaning on a walking stick. He wore old military insignia, faded but recognizable. I am Yoon Minho, he said in accented Korean. Commander Taemon was my great-grandfather. I was born on this station 3 years after the evacuation. I have lived my entire life believing the Eternal Horizon was lost. Seeing it now is like seeing a ghost. The ship refused to die, Daewon said. It waited. It endured. And now it's home. Minho looked at Daewon with curiosity. You are human. How did you come to be the keeper of our most sacred warship? I found it drifting. I repaired it. And it accepted me. Minho smiled. Then you have done what none of us could. You have brought hope back to our people. He turned to the crowd and spoke in Valthek. The crowd erupted in celebration, their voices echoing through the bay. But the celebration was cut short by alarm systems. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A voice announced in multiple languages. Skrell fleet detected. Multiple capital ships entering the expanse. This is not a drill. All defensive forces to battle stations. Daewon's blood ran cold. The Skrell had found them. Either they had tracked Narim's power signature, or Hyunwoo had sold the information. Either way, the refuge's location was compromised. Minho's expression hardened. We must evacuate. We have protocols for this. Civilian ships will launch immediately. Our defense fleet will buy time, but we cannot win against a full Skrell battle group. How many ships do you have? Jiwan asked. 23 warships, all old and barely maintained. The Skrell have at least 40, all modern and fully armed. The odds were terrible. The Valthek would fight and die protecting the evacuation. Their people would scatter again, refugees fleeing into space. Unless something changed the equation. Day one ran back to Narim. We need to fight. Can you do it? Are you strong enough? The ship's response was immediate. Weapon systems began charging. Shields activated. Engines warmed to full power. Narim had been waiting for this moment for 127 years. The chance to protect others again, to fulfill its purpose. You're damaged, Day One said. You're not at full strength. This could destroy you. The ship showed him images of its crew, Taman and others who had died defending the innocent. Narim had survived when they had not. The ship owed them this. It owed the Valthek descendants this. It would not run. Daewon strapped himself into the captain's chair, something he had never done before. Jiwan took the navigation station. Through the viewport, they saw the Skrell fleet emerging from the asteroid field. 40 ships, massive and dangerous, bearing down on the station. The Valthek defense fleet launched. 23 small ships against an overwhelming force. They formed a defensive screen between the Skrell and the station, buying time for evacuation ships to escape. Weapons fire lit up the space, bright against the asteroids. Narim moved to join them. The ship was slow and damaged, but it was still a capital-class warship. Its weapons, even at partial capacity, could make a difference. Daewon targeted a Skrell cruiser and fired. The shot struck true, punching through shields and hull. The cruiser listed, damaged but not destroyed. The Skrell fleet noticed Narim. Their communications filled with alarm. The legendary Eternal Horizon, the ship that had destroyed dozens of their vessels in the final battle, had returned. They concentrated fire on Narim, trying to eliminate the threat. Daewon maneuvered the ship through the asteroid field using the massive rocks as cover. Narim was old and slow, but Daewon had learned its personality. He knew how the ship moved, how it responded. Together they danced through the chaos, firing when opportunities appeared, dodging when they could not. But they were taking damage. Shield systems failed, hull breaches opened, critical systems went offline. Narim was dying again, but it kept fighting. Every second it survived was another second for refugees to escape. Jiwan monitored the evacuation. 70% of civilian ships have launched. They need more time. A Skrell battleship focused its full weapons array on Narim. The barrage was too much. Shields collapsed completely. The ship's hull buckled under the assault. Daewon felt Narim's pain through their bond. The ship was failing. We need to retreat, Jiwan said urgently. But retreating meant the Skrell would reach the station, meant the remaining civilians would be captured or killed. Daewon made a decision. Narim, can you ram that battleship? The ship understood immediately. It was the same choice Taman had tried to make. Sacrifice itself to save others. This time it would succeed. No, Jiwan said. There has to be another way. There isn't, Daewon said quietly. He looked at the core, seeing the blue light pulse steadily despite the damage. You've endured long enough. You've earned your rest. Let's make it count. Narim turned directly toward the Skrell battleship and accelerated, using every bit of remaining power. The battleship tried to maneuver away, but it was too slow. Narim struck it at full speed, the impact catastrophic for both vessels. The explosion lit up the expanse like a small sun. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The Eternal Horizon had finally completed the mission Taman had given it over a century ago. But inside Narim's core, protected by layers of armor and energy fields, Daewon and Jiwan survived. The core had sealed itself around them, creating a small safe zone. The ship's final act had been to protect its keeper. The Valthek fleet, inspired by Narim's sacrifice, fought with renewed determination. The remaining Skrell ships, having lost their flagship and seeing the legendary warship destroy itself, chose to retreat rather than continue the battle. They had learned the same lesson the Skrell of Taman's time had learned. You could kill the Valthek, but you could not break their will to protect others. Rescue ships found Daewon and Jiwan floating in the core's protective shell. They brought them back to the station. After Hyunwoo's ships left, Daewon spent 3 days working on Narim's deeper systems. The encounter had proven the ship needed better defenses, but more importantly, it needed to understand itself again. Large sections of memory remained locked or corrupted. The ship had gaps in its knowledge, missing pieces of who it had been before the battle. Daewon focused on restoring the central memory archives. This was delicate work, requiring careful attention to avoid destroying fragile data. He worked slowly, recovering files one by one. Most were routine ship operations, crew schedules, maintenance logs. But on the 4th day, he found something different. A sealed file marked with Commander Taemin's personal code. The encryption was strong, designed to survive even catastrophic damage. Daewon spent 6 hours breaking through the security. When he finally accessed the file, he understood why Taemin had protected it so carefully. It was a final message, recorded after Taemin had ordered the evacuation but before he left the ship. The hologram showed the commander sitting alone on the bridge, looking tired and sad. "If you are viewing this, the eternal horizon has survived," Taemin said. "I do not know how. I do not know when you found this. But I must tell you what I could not tell my crew. The war is lost. The Skrell Dominion is too strong. They have destroyed most of our fleet. Our colonies fall one by one. But there is hope." Taemin pulled up a star chart. A location flashed red in a distant region of space. 6 months ago, we sent civilian ships to establish a hidden refuge. Thousands of Valthek survivors, along with members of other species the Skrell hunted. They hide in the Kashar expanse, protected by asteroid fields and stellar radiation that blocks most sensors. The coordinates are encrypted in this message. The commander's expression grew serious. But there is danger. The Skrell know some survivors escaped. They send hunter fleets to search for refugees. If they find the refuge, everyone there will die. I am encoding the coordinates into the Eternal Horizon's core. If this ship survives, it can guide others to safety. But you must be careful. The journey is dangerous, and the Skrell are always watching. Taemin stood, placing his hand over his heart in a Valthek gesture of respect. "Whoever you are, thank you for finding this ship. Thank you for caring when others would have abandoned it. May you reach the refuge safely. May you find others who endured. And may the memory of the Valthek people survive even if we do not." The message ended. Daewon sat in silence, processing what he had learned. Somewhere out there, Valthek survivors lived in hiding. Narim held the key to finding them. But the journey would attract attention, especially from the Skrell. And Hyunwoo knew about the ship now. Word would spread. Others would come seeking the technology. Narim displayed the coordinates on a holographic map. The Kashar expanse was far away, at least 3 weeks of travel through dangerous space. But Daewon knew what he had to do. These people had been hiding for over a century. They deserved to know their warship still lived. They deserved hope. Before he could plan the journey, his communication system received an incoming message. The sender ID made him smile. Park Ji-won. He had not spoken to her in 2 years, not since he had pulled her from a collapsed Valthek ruin on the planet Osar 4. Her face appeared on the screen. Ji-won looked the same as he remembered. Short black hair, sharp eyes, and a scholar's intensity. "Daewon, we need to talk. I've been monitoring salvage communications. I know you found a Valthek warship. I know it's operational. And I know the Skrell are looking for it." "How do you know about the Skrell?" Daewon asked. "Because I've spent the last 2 years researching what happened to the Valthek. The Skrell Dominion never stopped hunting survivors. They consider the remaining Valthek a threat. They maintain hunter fleets specifically to find and eliminate refugee groups. If they detect your ship's power signature, they will come." Daewon felt cold. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe. The Skrell monitor this region. A Valthek warship coming online will trigger every sensor they have. You need to leave now or you need to shut down the ship and hide." "I can't shut it down. And I'm not hiding. I found coordinates to a Valthek refuge. Survivors are there. They need to know about this ship." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "The Kashar expanse. Taemin's hidden colony. I theorized it existed but could never find proof. If you have the coordinates, thousands of people's lives could change. But the journey will be dangerous, I know. Then you'll need help. I'm currently on Station Meridian 3rd, 2 days from your position. I have research data on Skrell patrol patterns and safe routes through contested space. Let me join you." "I can help you reach the refuge," Daewon considered the offer. He had worked alone for years, trusting no one. But this mission was bigger than him, and G1 had proven herself trustworthy before. All right, send me your coordinates. I'll pick you up. G1 smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. One more thing. Stellar Reclamation Incorporated has put out a bounty, 500,000 credits for information leading to the capture of a Vaultec warship. Choi Hyunwoo is calling in favors. You'll have more than corporate ships to worry about. Mercenaries, pirates, and bounty hunters will be searching for you. Good to know. See you in 2 days. After ending the communication, Daewon explained the situation to Narim. The ship processed the information, displaying holographic projections of potential threats. The odds were not good. They would be traveling through dangerous space with limited weapons and shields, hunted by enemies who wanted to capture or destroy them. But Narim also showed something else. Hope. The coordinates meant the ship could return to its people. After 127 years, it could complete its mission. It could bring survivors home. Are you sure about this? Daewon asked the ship. We could stay hidden. Avoid the danger. You don't owe anyone this risk. The ship's response was immediate. Images of Taemin appeared, along with the faces of the crew who had served aboard. These people had trusted the ship. They had died protecting others. The least Narim could do was honor their sacrifice by helping their descendants survive. Daewon nodded. All right then. We make the journey. But we do it smart. We'll pick up G1, plan the safest route, and move fast. No unnecessary risks. Over the next 2 days, Daewon worked intensively on preparing the ship. He repaired the main engines, getting them to 40% capacity. He restored shields to minimal function. He brought more weapons online, enough to defend against small threats. The ship would never be battle-ready, not without months more work, but it could move and protect itself. Narim helped with the preparations, learning to work with human technology. Daewon installed hybrid systems that blended Vaultec and human designs. They were not pretty, but they worked. The ship was becoming something new, not fully Vaultec, but not human either. A combination of both. On the morning of the 3rd day, they reached Station Meridian 3. Ji-won waited at the docking port carrying 2 bags of equipment and research materials. She looked at Narim's massive hull with wonder. It's beautiful, she said as she came aboard. I've studied Vaultec ships all my life, but I never thought I'd stand inside one. Daewon showed her through the ship, explaining the repairs he had made. Ji-won examined everything with a scholar's eye, taking notes and asking detailed questions. When they reached the core chamber, she stopped and stared. This is a living ship, she whispered. The Vaultec really did it. They created true artificial intelligence bonded with organic systems. This is the most important discovery in decades. It's more than that, Daewon said. Narim is a person. Treat it that way. Ji-won nodded, understanding. She approached the core and spoke in the Vaultec language. Hello, I am honored to meet you. The ship responded with warmth and flickering lights. Daewon was repairing a damaged sensor array when Narim's warning systems activated. The ship's lights turned red and the temperature dropped sharply. Something was wrong. Daewon checked his scanner and saw 5 ships approaching fast. They were corporate salvage vessels, heavily armed and running aggressive scan patterns. He ran to the bridge and activated the communication system. A face appeared on the screen, a man in his 40s wearing an expensive suit. His name tag read, Choi Hyunwoo, Chief Operations Officer for Stellar Reclamation Incorporated. This is a pleasant surprise, Hyunwoo said, smiling. We detected unusual power readings from this derelict. Imagine my shock to find someone has already claimed it. You must be very skilled to get a Vaultec ship running. I'm working on repairs, Daewon said carefully. The ship was abandoned. I have legal salvage rights, Hyunwoo laughed. Legal rights out here? My friend, we are far from any court or station. Rights belong to whoever has the bigger guns, and I have 5 ships. You have 1 small rig. Do the math. Daewon felt Narim's anger through the ship's systems. The temperature rose. The lights brightened. The ship wanted to fight to defend itself and its keeper. But Daewon knew they could not win. Narim was barely functional. Most weapons remained offline. They would be destroyed in seconds. I need you to stay calm, Daewon whispered to the ship. Let me handle this. The temperature dropped slightly. Narim was listening. Hyunwoo continued talking. Here's what will happen. You will transfer control of that ship to my crew. We will take it apart, sell the technology, and make a fortune. To compensate you for your time, I'll give you 50,000 credits. That's generous considering I could just take it. No, Daewon said. Hyunwoo's smile disappeared. Excuse me? This ship is not dead metal. It's alive. It's semi-sentient. Taking it apart would be murder. Don't be ridiculous. It's a machine. An old broken machine. Now stop wasting my time and unlock those systems. Daewon ended the communication. Hyunwoo's ships moved closer, taking aggressive positions around Narration. Daewon knew what came next. They would board the ship and try to force their way to the core. They would override the systems and shut Narration down. They would kill the ship and call it salvage. I need you to trust me, Daewon said to Narration. Can you seal the docking ports? Make it hard for them to board? The ship responded immediately. Heavy blast doors slammed shut over every external port. Internal bulkheads sealed, creating a maze of isolated sections. Narration was fortifying itself. Cutting torches activated on Hyunwoo's ships. They began burning through Narayan's hull, creating new entry points. Daewon watched on the sensors as teams in armored suits entered the ship. 20 people spread through the corridors, moving toward the core chamber. Narration showed Daewon what it wanted to do. Holographic displays illustrated plans to vent atmosphere from sections where the boarders walked. To seal them in rooms and let their air run out. To activate old defense systems and eliminate the threat. The ship could kill them all. No, Daewon said firmly. We don't kill them. The ship's confusion came through as temperature fluctuations. It did not understand. These people wanted to destroy it. Why show mercy? Because killing them makes us murderers, Daewon explained. And because they don't understand what you are. They see valuable technology, not a living being. We need to make them understand without hurting them. Narration hesitated, then agreed. The ship would follow its keeper's judgment. Daewon created a new plan. Narration would scare the boarders without harming them, make them think the ship was too dangerous to salvage. The ship followed his instructions, adjusting its approach. When boarders entered a corridor, lights would shut off, plunging them into darkness. Doors would slam shut behind them, cutting off escape routes. Strange sounds would echo through the walls. Temperature would spike or drop dramatically. Daewon watched as the boarders grew increasingly nervous. Their communications filled with worried voices. This place is wrong. The systems are responding to us. Doors keep sealing. I'm trapped. Temperature just dropped 40 degrees in 2 seconds. My suit can't compensate, but Hyunwoo pushed them forward. It's just malfunctioning systems. Keep moving toward the core. The first team reached the core chamber. 8 people in armored suits carrying heavy equipment. They saw the glowing blue sphere and approached it with scanning tools. Daewon stood in their way. Leave, he said simply. The team leader raised a weapon. Step aside. We're taking control of this vessel. Daewon shook his head. This ship is alive. It's been alone for over a century. I'm not letting you kill it. Last warning. Move or we move you. Daewon stood his ground. Behind him, the core pulsed brighter. Narration was afraid but ready to protect its keeper. Then the ship did something unexpected. It showed the boarders what Daewon had seen. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing memories of the crew, the battle, Taemin's final order, and 127 years of lonely silence. The ship showed them its pain, its hope, its refusal to die. It showed them what it meant to endure. The team leader lowered his weapon. It's actually alive, he whispered. Yes, Daewon said. And it deserves better than being torn apart for profit. Before anyone could respond, weapon systems throughout Narration came online. Daewon felt his stomach drop. He had only repaired a small percentage of the ship's systems, but apparently that included some defense cannons. Targeting sensors locked onto Hyunwoo's ships. The ship was preparing to fight. Narration, no, Daewon said urgently. Don't do this, the weapon's charged. Hyunwoo's voice came over communications, panicked now. What's happening? Why are we being targeted? Daewon understood. The ship was making a choice. It would not kill the people inside itself, respecting its keeper's wishes. But the ships outside threatening them were different. Narration could destroy those, please, Daewon said to the core. Killing them won't make you whole. It won't bring your crew back. It will just add more pain to what you've already endured. The weapons remained charged. Seconds passed like hours. Then slowly the targeting locks released. The weapons powered down. Narration had chosen mercy over vengeance. Daewon opened communications to Hyunwoo. You have 10 minutes to recall your people and leave. The ship is armed and functional. Next time it might not show restraint. Hyunwoo stared at him from the screen. You're making a mistake. That ship is worth billions. That ship is a living being who's suffered enough. Leave now. The boarders retreated quickly, returning to their ships. Hyunwoo's fleet pulled back, maintaining distance. This isn't over, Hyunwoo promised. I'll be back with more ships. We'll be ready, Daewon replied and ended the communication. The chamber fell quiet. Daewon approached the core and placed his hand on its surface. Thank you for trusting me. I know it was hard. The ship's response came as warmth spreading through the chamber. It understood now. Its keeper would protect it not through violence, but through something. Daewon slept in his suit that first night, leaning against a wall in the core chamber. He did not trust the ship enough yet to return to the Wanderer. When he woke, more lights had activated. The ship was restoring itself, slowly bringing dead systems online. He ate a ration bar and drank recycled water while studying his scanner readings. The core showed stronger activity now. Power generation had increased to 8%, still far from full capacity, but better than the 3% he had found. The ship was healing itself, using his repairs as a foundation. But something else was happening too. Temperature fluctuations in certain sections. Lights dimming and brightening in patterns. The ship was trying to communicate. Daewon stood and walked to the core. He placed his gloved hand against the crystalline surface. It felt warm even through his suit. Can you understand me? He asked. The lights in the chamber flickered 3 times, then stopped, then flickered 3 times again. That's a response, Daewon said. You're in there. You're aware. The temperature in the chamber rose 2 degrees. The lights brightened. Daewon smiled. The ship was answering him the only way it could. It could not speak, but it could show him what it felt through its systems. Over the next week, Daewon worked through the ship section by section. He repaired damaged conduits, replaced burned circuits, and cleared blocked pathways. The ship helped him, opening sealed doors and highlighting damaged areas with flickering lights. They developed a language between them. Temperature changes meant yes or no. Light patterns indicated direction or urgency. It was crude but effective. Daewon talked while he worked. 12 years alone on the Wanderer had taught him the value of conversation, even when nobody answered. I'm from Earth, he told the ship. That's the human homeworld. We're pretty new to this part of space. Only been out here about 80 years. We're not as advanced as the Valthek were, but we're good at fixing things. We don't give up easily. The ship's lights pulsed steadily as he spoke, as if listening. During his 3rd day aboard, Daewon found the ship's data archives. They were heavily corrupted, but he managed to restore several files. The first was a log entry from someone named Yoon Taemin, the ship's commander. Daewon sat in what had been the bridge and played the recording. The holographic image of a Valtech appeared before him. Taemin stood tall, nearly 7 feet, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. He wore a uniform marked with symbols of rank. When he spoke, the ship's translation system converted his words into Korean. This is Commander Yoon Taemin, final log entry. The Skrell fleet has broken our defensive line. We have lost 60% of our forces. The Eternal Horizon has sustained critical damage. My crew, Taemin paused, his face showing pain. My crew has fought bravely, but we cannot win this battle. I have ordered evacuation. All hands to escape pods. I am setting the ship to self-destruct. With luck, we will take several Skrell vessels with us. May our sacrifice buy time for others to escape. This is my last order. Abandon ship. The recording ended. Daewon sat in silence, understanding now what had happened. Taemin had tried to destroy the ship rather than let it fall into enemy hands. But the self-destruct had failed. The ship had survived alone, drifting for over a century while believing it had failed its crew. He didn't abandon you, Daewon said to the ship. He tried to save you the only way he knew. You didn't fail. You survived. The temperature dropped sharply. The lights dimmed. Daewon realized the ship was grieving. All this time it had been alone with its guilt and pain, unable to understand that it had done nothing wrong. Daewon spent the next hour restoring more files. He found crew records, battle reports, and personal logs. He learned about the Valthek, their culture, their war with the Skrell Dominion. The Skrell wanted to conquer everything. The Valthek had fought to protect smaller species, but they had lost. Most were killed. The survivors scattered to unknown places. Another file showed the ship's designation in the Valtech language. The translation came through as Narration, which meant enduring or lasting. The ship had been named for its ability to survive damage and continue fighting. That name had proven true in a way its builders never imagined. Daewon continued his repairs. He restored the ship's internal sensors, allowing Narration to fully see itself for the first time in decades. He repaired the environmental systems, bringing atmosphere back to sealed sections. He fixed communication arrays and navigation computers. Each repair brought the ship closer to full function. As they worked together, Daewon felt the relationship between them change. Narration began to anticipate his needs, having tools ready before he asked, adjusting lighting to help him see better. When he grew tired, the ship would warm the section he worked in, encouraging him to rest. It was caring for him the way he cared for it. One evening, after finishing repairs on the port engine assembly, Daewon returned to the core chamber. He sat on the floor, exhausted. "Why did you keep going?" he asked the ship. "You were alone for so long. Your crew was gone. Why not just shut down?" The lights flickered in a complex pattern. Then a holographic display activated. It showed images from the ship's memory, the crew walking the corridors, Taman giving orders on the bridge, engineers working in teams, laughing together. The images showed connection, purpose, belonging. Then they shifted to show the battle, explosions, damage, evacuation pods launching, and finally silence, but the images continued. They showed the ship alone in space, keeping its systems running on almost no power. Waiting, hoping someone would return. Days became weeks, weeks became years, years became decades. But the ship never stopped trying to stay alive, because that was what Taman had built it to do. To endure. The images faded. Daewon wiped his eyes. "You never gave up," he said. "Even when you had every reason to quit, you kept going. That's not failure. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." The ship's core pulsed brightly, a steady rhythm that filled the chamber with blue light. Daewon understood what it meant. The ship was no longer just a machine to him, and he was no longer just a salvager to it. They had formed something the Valtech called a keeper bond. He would care for the ship. The ship would care for him. Narration created a holographic symbol and projected it above Daewon. The symbol was Valtech writing, meaning keeper or guardian. The ship was giving him a title, accepting him as its new purpose. Daewon reached out and touched the hologram. "I accept," he said. "I'll take care of you. I promise." For the first time in 127 years, the Eternal Horizon was no longer alone. Neither was Han Daewon. They had found each other in the darkness of space, two broken things that The darkness of space held many secrets, and Han Daewon had spent 12 years finding them. His salvage rig, a small vessel called the Wanderer, drifted through the Outer Rim territories where few ships traveled. Out here, forgotten battles left behind broken vessels and lost technology. Daewon made his living pulling useful parts from these wrecks and selling them to stations that asked no questions. Today his scanner showed something unusual. The screen displayed a massive signature, far larger than anything he had seen before. Daewon leaned forward in his chair, studying the readings. The object was 15 kilometers long, shaped like a blade and completely dark. No power readings, no heat signatures, just a huge piece of metal floating through the void. "That's a Valtech warship," his AI assistant said through the cockpit speakers. The AI had no name. Daewon preferred it that way. Records show the Eternal Horizon went missing 127 years ago during the Skrull War. All hands presumed lost. Daewon rubbed his jaw, feeling 3 days of stubble. A Valtech warship. The Valtech had been an advanced species, far ahead of humans in technology. Their ships were worth fortunes, even as scrap. But they had disappeared decades before humans reached this part of space. Some said the Skrull Dominion wiped them out. Others claimed they fled to unknown regions. Nobody knew for sure. "Any other salvagers in range?" Daewon asked. "Negative. We are alone." Daewon smiled. Alone meant no competition. No one to split the claim with. He pushed the Wanderer's throttle forward, moving toward the derelict. As he approached, the ship's true size became clear. It dwarfed his small rig. The hull was dark gray, covered in scorch marks and impact craters. Entire sections looked torn open, exposed to space. Whatever battle had killed this ship had been brutal. The AI spoke again. Warning. Local legend designates this vessel as cursed. 17 salvage attempts recorded. None successful. All crews reported system failures and abandoned their efforts. Curses aren't real, Daewon said. He had heard these stories before. Salvagers were superstitious people. When they failed to crack a ship's systems, they blamed ghosts instead of admitting defeat. Daewon did not believe in ghosts. He believed in corroded circuits and dead batteries. He maneuvered the Wanderer to a docking port near the warship's stern. The port looked intact, though covered in dust and ice. Daewon activated the docking clamps. Metal groaned as the two ships connected. He checked his suit seals, grabbed his tool bag, and opened the airlock. The interior of the Eternal Horizon was cold and dark. Daewon's helmet light cut through the blackness, revealing a corridor lined with strange symbols. Valtech writing. The walls were smooth, almost organic-looking. Nothing like human ships with their exposed pipes and riveted panels. The Valtech had built their vessels differently, blending technology with something else. Something almost alive. Daewon moved deeper into the ship. His boots made no sound in the vacuum. He passed through corridors and chambers, seeing signs of the final battle everywhere. Blast marks on walls. Frozen atmosphere crystallized in corners. Bodies had been here once, but someone had removed them long ago. Only empty space remained. His scanner led him toward the ship's center. Every vessel had a heart, a core that powered everything else. If he could reach it, he could assess what remained valuable. The journey took an hour. The ship was enormous, a maze of passages that all looked the same. Twice he had to cut through sealed doors with his plasma torch. Finally, he entered a vast chamber. His light swept across the space and stopped on something incredible. In the center of the chamber floated a sphere, 3 meters wide, covered in crystalline panels that pulsed with faint blue light. Conduits ran from the sphere in all directions, disappearing into the walls like veins. This was the ship's core, its brain and power source combined, but it should have been dead. The ship had drifted powerless for over a century. Yet the core still showed signs of life, faint but present. The blue light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Daewon approached carefully. He pulled a diagnostic scanner from his bag and connected it to one of the conduits. Data flooded his helmet display. The core was damaged but functional. Power cells had degraded to 3% capacity. Neural pathways showed massive corruption. Life support offline. Weapons offline. Engines offline. Everything was broken, but the core itself remained alive barely. "This is incredible," Daewon whispered. He had heard stories about Valtech ships. They were not just machines. The Valtech had engineered them to be partially alive, semi-sentient beings that bonded with their crews. This ship had been alone for 127 years, keeping itself alive on almost nothing. Waiting. Daewon made a decision. He could strip the ship for parts and make good money. Or he could try something different. Something harder. He could try to repair it. He opened his tool bag and began working. The Valtech had used different technology than humans, but Daewon understood the basics. Power needed to flow. Circuits needed to connect. He found the main power conduits and saw the problem immediately. Corrosion had eaten through critical connections. The core could not distribute power even if it generated more. Daewon cut away the corroded sections and spliced in human-made connectors. They looked crude against the elegant Valtech design, but function mattered more than beauty. He rerouted pathways, bypassed damaged sections, and reinforced weak points. It took 6 hours of constant work. His hands ached. His back hurt, but he continued. "Hold on," he said to the core, though he knew it probably could not understand him. "I've got you. Just a little longer." He completed the final connection and activated the power flow. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue light in the core grew brighter. The pulse quickened. Energy began flowing through the conduits, spreading through the ship like blood returning to frozen limbs. Lights flickered on throughout the chamber. Then in the corridors beyond, Daewon heard sounds for the first time since entering the ship. Hums and clicks in the soft rush of atmosphere being generated. The temperature began rising. The ship was breathing again. Daewon stood in the center of the chamber, watching the core pulse with steady light. Around him, the Eternal Horizon came alive after 127 years of silence. He did not know what he had just awakened, but he knew